everyone. Good evening and welcome to another spoiler review episode here of the Book of Boba Fett from the
Geek
Buddies.
Hey!
See, I was ready. I knew it. I was ready for it.
We're back again this week to break down Chapter 2, Episode 2 of the Book of Boba Fett, The Tribes of Tatooine, directed by Steph Green, written by John Favreau. We're going to get into all of it, break it all down section by section. This is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the episode, go pause right here, go and watch it, come on back. Unless you want things spoiled for you, it's your life, do as you wish. Stick around and hang out with us. And we are live today. This isn't an accident. We are live today, so send in your Streamlabs and Super Chats as we go along. We are missing our fourth right now. We hopefully he'll join us at some point down the road here.
The Jawas got him. It's the Jawas.
He's in a Sarlacc pit of his own, and hopefully he will join us at some point as we go along here. But let's introduce ourselves before we dive too deep into this. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Outlaw Nation and the Geek Buddies. Mike?
I am Michael Vogel, a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies, and a co-host here on the Geek Buddies.
And joining us yet again, and we're going to have her if she can stay on with us through the all 7 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. She is the co-host of the Force Toast Pod and the co-host of the Jedi Way. We still have to do our first episode of 2022 at some point. She is the great Laura Kelly. How are you, Laura?
I'm amazing. I'm excited to be here. We'll see Shannon soon. I'm excited to see Shannon when he does show up. But yeah, this is going to be a great one for us to talk about, especially after the first episode. I think this is just going to be way more fun, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a lot to dive in on here. I will also say I'm really excited about Shannon coming in late because then I can hold it over Shannon for the entirety of our live episode. So that's really what I'm mostly excited about.
We just got the text from Shannon saying F word, sorry. So we will see him momentarily for sure. So let's have fun until then. All right, the Book of Boba Fett, so much to dive into. And one more thing before we do that, want to give some love to Carbon Health, who sponsors and powers what we do here on the Outlaw Nation channel and on the Geek Buddies. You can go to carbonhealth.com and see all they have there for you to use. They are a leading national healthcare provider with a mission to bring high-quality healthcare to everyone, urgent care, primary care, virtual care. They have 90 clinics in 14 states. They offer virtual care in 24 states. No truth to the rumors. They have backed the tanks there, but certainly Carbon Health has just about everything else you might need to help you, including now recently they reached out to me and asked me to say this. They have COVID testing available. And if you're going overseas, they also have COVID testing available for you to qualify for that so that you can go see friends, family, or anything else overseas. So go and reach out to them at carbonhealth.com and see if they've got a clinic or virtual care near you. Boom. Is there anything else to say, Mike? Anything else on that? No.
Just that one of our Geek Buddies, Mark Kressel, texted me today and said that he went to Carbon Health to get a COVID test, and all he could think of the entire time was the Geek Buddies. So, good job, Johnny. You're preaching. You're preaching it. You're preaching the gospel, and you're doing a good job. Keep it up.
Good job, us. Good job, us. Absolutely. All right, let's get into this thing. Hopefully, Shannon will join us in momentarily, but let's jump to you, Michael, first. This is Chapter 2, Episode 2, The Tribes of Tatooine. 52 minutes long, 14 minutes longer than the first episode. What did you think overall of this second episode here, the first season of the Book of Boba Fett?
Well, I try and avoid spoilers on Wednesday. I watch it pretty early, but I wake up even earlier because I got to go to the gym. And I did open Twitter and I saw a bunch of people saying, this is the most Star Wars thing to Star Wars since Rogue One. This was great. I'm like, nice. And I was like, okay, everybody needs to calm down. I'm sure it was fine. And then I watched it and I was like, no, they might be onto something. Last week we talked about the first episode and I think we all enjoyed it. We all liked where it was going.
Yeah.
We were all intrigued by where it was going to go. We were happy it answered some questions. But I don't think, as we all said, there was no Grogu. There was no big twist. There was nothing that really blew us out of the water. Right. And this episode pretty much blew me out of the water on multiple fronts. As a hardcore nerd, I was really excited. I loved both storylines. I loved the storyline in the present, which was definitely like the smaller storyline, and everything that happened. I think the entire train sequence is maybe one of the better Star Wars action sequences that we've had maybe since the last hour of Rogue One, as far as just epic, awesome, well-shot action sequences. So I was very, very into Chapter 2.
Okay, good stuff. And before we go any further, let's welcome him to the show. There he is. Showing up on
Hey,
time.
so we're just starting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What's going on?
I'm so sorry. I literally have my setup. I think I might have to go to the doctor to check about how deeply I fall asleep. I have everything set up. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to shut my eyes for 5 minutes. It'll be fine. And then I woke up to a bunch of texts. Apologies.
I told you.
Apologies
I
all
told you
around.
he was asleep. I told you he was asleep.
have-
Well, do you
I have
have
no
your
excuse.
mic selected, Shannon?
Oh,
'Cause it
shit.
sounds like coming through. All
Wow.
right,
Hold on.
Dropping the S-bomb right off the bat. Love it. All right.
This
Yes.
is,
How about now?
Yes. Sounds much better now. Yes. Thank you.
So when I said I had my entire setup, I forgot to move the mic over.
Oh boy.
Oh,
This is the
Shannon.
Geek
Oh,
Buddies.
Shannon. This is worse than the time you said Goblet of Fire was your favorite Harry Potter movie.
Ooh.
Hey man,
Yikes.
read the YouTube comments. A lot of people came into my defense there, but also I didn't say it was my favorite. I said I really liked it.
Oh, there we go.
Mm.
Well, before we get to Shannon's thoughts on the episode, let's go to Laura Kelly. Laura, you were here from the beginning. So, Laura, you tell us, what was your feeling about episode 2, chapter 2 here? The Tribes of Tatooine. So much to explore within this episode, and so many Easter eggs and so many characters that popped up from the comics into live action, and characters we haven't seen before, but are connected, obviously, to characters we've seen in the past in the original trilogy. What did you think overall about this episode?
I loved it. And the last episode that we saw, it was great. Michael
Yeah.
said, for the most part we really liked it, but I was trusting that we were going to end up in a good place. And I'm glad that I had that, because I think I was right. I absolutely loved this episode. I kind of like one of the differences between this one and the last one was that we weren't jumping back and forth in the timeline. It was a
good
little bit more linear, cleaner. It just felt a little bit more grounded, and I appreciated that, especially given the length of the episode. I'm glad that they kept it just half and half. In this absolutely beautiful celebration of Indigenous culture in this episode was so heartwarming to see, and to see all the reactions online afterwards of people just saying, this is amazing. I feel represented. I am absolutely in love with this episode. It was great to see. So I was very thrilled with this one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Shannon McClung, give us your intro, and please let us know what you thought of episode 2 here, chapter 2 in the first season of the Book of Boba Fett.
I mean, certainly really, really enjoyed it. Episode 1 was not my favorite episode of Star Wars television content, and this one just knocked it out of the park. Steph Green, who was the director of this episode, who has worked on shows like The Americans and Watchmen, I thought did just a terrific job. And also Sam Hargraves, who is a big second unit director, stuntman, is credited as the second unit director on this. And so I went back and watched episode 1 to see if he was credited on the first episode, and I didn't see him on there.
Okay.
But both just did a really, really terrific job. I mean, they're really laying the foundation for this story moving forward that has to do with the Hutts, that has to do with this mayor who clearly knows more than he's saying, and also the story with the Tuskens, as you all have already mentioned. Really, really just this satisfying story. I mean, the first one, as Laura mentioned, kind of going back and forth, was a little jarring, but also you kind of had to not get this part out of the way, but you had to set the table, what I mean, before you could have this really great meal that the second episode has delivered, just in spades. I mean, it was just so good. I mean, watching Boba's sort of acceptance into this society, watching what he brings to the table, watching what they bring to the table with him. I mean, it was just such a satisfying episode of television. And as Vogel certainly knows, I love me a train sequence, action sequence. So watching this, watching it kind of go down, I was like, oh, okay, so it's kind of like Solo. I'm like, oh, it's better. Oh, it's better. So yeah, I mean, just a really, really great episode of the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, certainly. I have to agree with all three. I absolutely love this episode. This was so much fun to dive into. And yeah, Michael, whoever texted you and said this is old school Star Wars, it very much felt like that, you know. And for all the criticisms of episode 1, there's no way we enjoy episode 2 in the way that we are enjoying it without the table being laid out here in episode 1. Yes, the back and forth, I didn't mind it, but I can understand why it'd be jarring. But everything they laid the groundwork for, the political intrigue, the idea of connecting with the Tusken Raiders, all of that was laid out in episode 1 so that we could enjoy episode 2. And maybe there is some credibility to people who said they should have dropped the first 2 episodes on the first night. People would have been way more glowing about it. But, you know, sometimes you have to wait for things in life, and there ain't anything wrong with that, for God's sakes. It's only 7 episodes. I loved it to pieces. It didn't only just make references to like the original trilogy stuff or to comic book stuff with Black Chrysanthemum. To me, it was also the references to the classic films, the Lawrence of Arabia stuff that you saw throughout this thing, the old school Westerns like Stagecoach. There was so much here that was exciting to dive into and enjoy, and the progression of what we're seeing here with Boba going on essentially a walkabout, going on a spiritual journey, young guns going out in there and having, you know, chicken, seeing the big chicken and Chavez and all this stuff. It was great. But then also having this Maori connection with the gaffy stick. And we'll get to that a little bit later as we talk about it, but seeing all of that. And I had a couple of my friends who are Native Americans who reached out to me and said to me that sequence where they're taking the speeder bikes apart, that is what happened originally when Native Americans would get horses. They would start to kind of cut into the horses and see what they could eat or whatever. And they had to be trained into not doing that and realizing these could be horses they could use to mount. So there's a lot of that here that has so many cultural references and bone deep cultural references that I think is fascinating and surprising and awesome to see in Star Wars. So very exciting stuff for sure. And of course, we got a lot of awesome actors being a part of this as well. All right, so we're going to dive into this thing. This is your final spoiler warning. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Come on back and join us. We're going to break it down section per section and talk about it. So, all right. We start out back at Jabba's palace. We see Fennec bringing her prisoner from episode 1. This has shades of Return of the Jedi with that gate opening the way it does, the Gamorrean guards being there. And now Boba wants to know from this assassin who sent him and what were his orders. He mentions that he says that he is from the Order of the Night Wind. And that allows Fennec Shand to get all kinds of shots in. An expensive assassin. He's overpriced. You're paying for the name, kind of like what they say about Nike and stuff. Anyway, Fennec Shand, he won't tell the truth. He won't tell any more information. He says you're not going to get any information from him. Well, Fennec Shand drops him into the Rancor pit. He starts to scream as we see the gate kind of open for the Rancor and screams that the mayor sent him. And then we see that the pit is empty. She says it's empty, and just a little mouse comes rolling around the corner here. Then we're back to the city square with the prisoner, the assassin in tow, so that everyone sees Boba's power. This is different from when he walked in the first episode through the town square. Now he's leading an assassin right there for everyone to see, and the Trandoshans are watching him carefully from the sidelines. We get to the mayor's building. An appointment issue pops up with some dude who looks like he could be related to Bill Burr's Mayfield family in some way, because he is so over it in Mos Espa. And just then the Major Domo steps in, and Boba doesn't give a rat's ass about him, just walks right in and confronts the mayor, Mok Shaiz, for answers. The mayor says the assassin is from the Order of the Night Wind and should not be allowed to operate outside of Hutt space, then kills the assassin. Then Mok Shaiz wants to pay off Boba. Boba takes it as a tribute, and the mayor says it wasn't him that sent the assassin and counsels Boba to think about who would benefit from his death, and says that running a family is more difficult than being a bounty hunter, and suggests he goes to Garza Fwip's sanctuary to see what he means. Michael, this is a hell of an intro with 2 really powerful scenes here. First with the assassin, hearing the Order of the Night Wind, which I'm not that steeped in the Star Wars lore, but I don't think I've ever heard that before. If you guys have, let me know. But this was surprising to see, and then right into the mayor being voiced by Robert Rodriguez and more of the political intrigue. What did you think about these opening 2 scenes here for this episode?
It was really great. Look, with Star Wars, when Star Wars is good, it's great. And when Star Wars is bad, it can get very fan servicey. And there are recent examples in Star Wars history where it gets a little fan servicey and you kind of go, well, that makes no sense. And what's great about Mandalorian, what's great about Book of Boba is when they reference something, it makes sense for the world. It makes sense for the moment. So this whole opening at Jabba's palace, like just shot for shot, like Fennec walking up to Jabba's palace is like just almost exactly C-3PO and R2-D2. That gate opens and like little 10-year-old me is like, oh shit, I remember how cool this was. And every moment is kind of built like the Rancor pit, like the attention to detail, the fact that it all looks exactly correct. Like Luke could have been there like the day before. Like it looks exactly right. Kind of just puts you into the world. Like you believe that this is the Jabba's palace that we all saw in Return of the Jedi. Like they didn't try and update it. They didn't try and do anything to make it look cooler. It is exactly that. And they just nail it. And it's a great fun moment. Everything with Fennec just sort of like talking shit about the Assassins of the Night Wind, which I agree with you and like, Laura, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is a new group. Like I don't think we've ever heard of the Assassins of the Night Wind before.
Yeah.
It's all really great. And then him walking that assassin, him and Fennec walking that assassin to the mayor. I don't know what's going on with the Trandoshans, but there's a lot of, like, they really lingered on those Trandoshans. Like, there was a lot of people. They do a really good job of populating Mos. It has that Mos Eisley feel from episode 4. But like, there's a lot of Trandoshans. A lot of Trandoshans. Like, well, this is clearly a thing. Everything, the Major Domo is so great. He's amazing. And then, the mayor. So, like, we have this Ithorian mayor. I don't know why I love Ithorians with translators around their neck. It just makes me giggle. Like, the fact that he's like, and then Robert Rodriguez's voice comes out, and he was, like, very, like, his soothing voice almost for this Ithorian. But, the most important thing to me in this scene is I think the mayor pretty much sums up what the show is. Yeah. Which is, being a bounty hunter is a lot easier than running a family. And that Boba Fett, clearly, based on what we see in the flashbacks, has a reason for wanting to come in. It's not just a power grab. It's not just he wants to be the most powerful bad guy. Like, he wants to make some kind of change in the world. And I think he's very quickly getting in over his head. And the mayor kind of speaks to that. So I think that's really kind of key to what the entire series is going to be. Yeah. In general, I just love the way that they kind of use what we know of Tatooine, what we know of these races. We've got the Gamorreans, we've got the Trandoshans, we've got this Ithorian mayor, and that they've taken all of these characters that were created, decades ago and kind of made them feel fresh and new because they're putting them in slightly different roles. Yeah. And we're going to see that in spades in the flashback with the Tusken Raiders. But even beyond that, like, just populating the world. It's what Dave Filoni did so well in the animated world of the Clone Wars. And the fact that they're taking that into this live action universe is just really, really thrilling.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. Absolutely thrilling. Laura, what did you think about these opening 2 scenes and what we got out of them, and what stood out for you as you're watching this kind of progression of Boba and understanding that there is a lot more moving pieces here than he originally anticipated, and having the mayor and the major domo coming in and trying to stop him, and him just like, that's enough of that crap, pushing right through. What did you think about all of this, the interactions with the mayor as well?
Well, I definitely loved the Major Domo coming back. I was very excited to see this character again because I just want him to be in every episode. And I want him to have a bigger role because he's funny and I love what he's bringing to the table. But to back up a little bit, this episode opens up with this like beautiful sweeping shot of the Tatooine landscape, and just like immediately I'm getting Return of the Jedi feel good vibes. Yeah. And that's my favorite original trilogy film. So I was very much enjoying all of the time that we spent in Jabba, now Boba's palace, in these opening scenes. I loved, we got a little Ichuta, which I thought was fun, a little callback to Empire Strikes Back, one of my favorite things. 8D8 is still being identified as 8D8, despite sources saying that he's someone else.
I know, it's weird.
It's 8D8. It's 8D8.
All right, Thank you. Tell IMDb. All right.
Yeah. The
IMDb.
Damn right. The Order of the Night Wind is brand new. This isn't someone we've seen in Star Wars before, which I think is really exciting. We're all on the same page here. Nobody has any kind of history of who these people are. I love when we're going through that journey together as the audience. So I'm kind of glad that we're not bringing in something from who knows where in Legends. The fact that the Rancor is not in there and we get that little moment of humor of Fennec Shand looking down, just being like, idiot. It was just really, really joyful for me. I enjoy that. And the whole scene with the mayor, I think Pedro Pascal would refer to it as Robert Rodriguez's bedroom voice, I think.
Yes.
And I think that's very much on point with what we were getting with this mayor character. He's so like soothing in a weird way, but I dig it. I don't know. It's awesome. But yeah, this entire first scene where, you know, they actually are the ones to shoot the assassin, and we learn that they're not allowed to operate outside of Hutt space. Like, we're getting these weird little crumbs that they're leaving. I imagine we're going to pick up later on, and hopefully dive into further.
Yeah, right on. Shannon, what stood out for you? Did you enjoy the crumbs you were getting here throughout this opening 2 scenes? And am I wrong? Is this guy with the mullet, is he related to Bill Burr's Mayfield? I feel like there's got to be a connection here.
I mean, there's definitely a Deadwood / stand-up connection. The guy has a very particular look. But as the episode started, as Vogel and Laura already mentioned, the opening shot of that gigantic door lifting up. I mean, it's just such a callback to something that a lot of us have grown up with, which is Return of the Jedi. I mean, and as they're walking the assassin in, I mean, I thought something else that was really interesting, and we kind of talked about it last week, was how empty the palace is. How you know that this is a different daimyo, that Boba's not interested in the pomp and circumstance of what this role can provide. Like he is trying to do something different. And on the heels of last episode, I mean, the fact that Finnick left the one assassin alive, which Boba said, alive, but based off of her look, she kicked one over the side, and it's like, okay, is she gonna become a turncoat already? Like there was just that moment of like, oh, are you gonna be loyal to Fett? And even as she's walking him up, as an audience, we still don't know that yet. I mean, we don't know Finnick Shand that well. I mean, we know her from Mandalorian, we know her from a little bit of the Bad Batch, but watching the two of them interrogate this assassin, how she's kind of got, she's got Boba's back. I mean, she's just sort of leaning up against the throne there. And I thought it was a really fun switch when the assassin yells out in Huttese, and then the moment he gets dropped into that pit, he switches into English, and he sounds like Tim, your accounting guy from your company. I thought oh my god, the mayor sent me. I thought that was a really nice switch. And just the name of the organizations, like the Order of the Night Wind, Black Sun, Crimson Dawn. Even though Black Sun started in the books with Shadows of the Empire, I believe. I love that we have to look up some of these names to be like, is this new? This might be new, or it might be old. I'm not sure. But also the fact that Mok Shaiz's guys immediately took that assassin out before he had the opportunity to spill any more beans, because in this situation, both could be true, that Mok Shaiz did send these assassins out, but at whose orders? I mean, Mok Shaiz has already said, like, hey, look, I serve at your pleasure. So more than likely they're taking their orders from someone else.
Yeah, I don't trust Mok Shaiz, but I don't not trust Mok Shaiz. Maybe it's Robert Rodriguez's bedroom voice. Like, maybe he lulled me into like a stupor. But like, I'm not quite sure. Like, I don't think that he's an ally, but it would be they've set him up so much to be a bad guy that if he fully turned out to be like, yo, dude, I'm on your side. Like, I don't know where they're gonna land with him, and I'm excited that I don't know.
Yeah, he's a politician. So he's not trying to be a good guy or a bad guy. He's trying to survive. And certainly with the criminal underworld and the element that's there, he's a guy that's going to keep his cards very close to his vest. So if he ends up on Boba's side, it's only because it works out for him, not some kind of noble moment. So I like that you're getting a multifaceted mayor here that isn't necessarily going to fall on the good or the bad side. Yeah, sorry.
That's actually a really good point. Like, I think that what is true of the underworld in general, in a mob movie, but in Star Wars as well, which is most people are going to side on the most powerful person. Like, they're all hedging their bets. Like, everybody, from all the Twi'leks in Sanctuary to the mayor to everybody. And I think what you're going to see is right now, based on like the reactions to Boba in the first episode, and kind of where we're at, I think everyone's still like, okay, this bounty hunter showed up and thinks he's going to do this thing.
Right.
But he's not really. We're going to be polite, but he's going to be dead pretty soon. And I think what we're going to see over the course of 7 episodes is him one by one start to turn people, not because they respect him, but because they're like, oh shit, he just might be more than we thought he was. He might actually do this. Maybe we should side with him. And I think that's going to be a really interesting dynamic to watch.
And to be honest with you, it's a hell of a jump from bounty hunter to running the whole damn operation. That's a hell of a jump to go from essentially a hired contractor to the CEO of the criminal underworld in a town. So I don't fault anybody for being like, I'm not going to embrace this guy just yet. Let's see what he's really got and what have you. And certainly it seems like a lot of people are going to be testing him. Yeah, I love the opening 2 scenes. Again, Laura mentioned this last week. They climbed up in my head, and they essentially are doing a show for me that I love. Someone commented, oh, it's too small for me. Max Cohen did one more flashback, and I'm out. Well, I hate to break it to you, Max. There's going to be 4 more episodes or 5 more episodes of flashbacks. So just letting you know, because this is how they're telling the story, and they've made it clear from the first 2 episodes. Love the political intrigue. Love that we don't know where everybody's siding. We're about to see Guards of Whip. I love the Guards of Whip. We don't know where she's siding either. And I love that we're constantly being challenged to figure out where everybody lands. And it's going to be a lot of fun as we go forward with the series. All right, let's keep going here. Where I left off, they head to Guards of Whip's sanctuary cantina there. We see Max Rebo still doing his thing. I don't recognize the song at all, but sounded good to me. Garza talks to him about talks to Boba about what's been going on and says, you haven't heard? You haven't heard? And she looks really nervous, looks a little sweaty, which Boba comments on. And then just then we hear this loud sound and then this marching, and Boba and Fennec Shan walk back out of the sanctuary, and then coming around the corner, being carried like they assumed Boba was going to be carried in the first episode, are the twins. Who are the twins? Well, we find out they are Jabba the Hutt's cousins. And finally, we're getting to see some Hutts live action again. It's been so long. Boba Fett pushes back on their claim when they say they're the ones that should be running things in Mos Espa. The sister wants to kill Boba, and she's got the fan and everything like that. And I've seen people commenting, like, why is she in pink? And it's delineating, but I get if people have an issue with it. Then
listen, when it comes to the Hutts, it's hard to tell. Let them have the pink.
Michael Vogel's opinions or Michael Vogel's own. I'm not going to get it.
Listen, how else are you going to know?
Please. Then the sister wants to kill Boba, and it's so great because they select what Huttese they're going to translate for you to read on the screen. I think that's brilliant because once again, it keeps us thinking. It keeps us wondering what side of the fence they're on, what their actual plan is here. Then they bring forward Black Chrysanthemum for the first time ever. The Kayan Kashyyyk, the Black Wookie, is here, and he looks badass. And this is a character from the comic books that was created in 2015, has had tussles with Kenobi, has had tussles with Jedi. So this is a pretty badass dude. Walks out and he looks scary as hell. It was so well done. The costume designers deserve so much credit for the costume they put him in. She and the female of the 2 Hutts is clearly the brains here and is advising her brother. And they end after Boba puts it all on the table that, hey, you know what? We can have this out in the street. Let's do this thing. And Fennec is there and turning her weapon on. They end up walking away saying they don't want any bloodshed. And then Fennec says, we should take them out, but we need to get permission to kill them. But from who? Are we looking at a Hutt council? Is that what's possible here? So let's stop there because we're about to go into the flashbacks. Laura Kelly, the twins, the Hutts, the Black Chrysanthemum. I mean, what is going on in this one section of the show?
Well, I was really happy to get back to the sanctuary, even if we were only there for just a moment. But true. These Hutts, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was that, here they are 5 years after the fact, trying to stake a claim to Jabba's throne. I'm like, what have you all been doing for the last 5 years? Well, I had to go to Alex Damon to get the answer. It turns out, I guess that Vader, hunted down a bunch of Hutts and just, annihilated a whole bunch of them. They've been, busy dealing with that, I guess. So
Okay.
that's sort of the answer as to, why this is just now happening. Like, why did you not come after Bib Fortuna? But the effect that the Hutts have on this group of people is really fun to see. We're getting like a little bit more insight even to like what this culture is on Tatooine. We hear the music or the drums coming in the distance, and everybody in the sanctuary just stops quiet. The music stops, people stop talking. It's a really cool effect to see. And then to see, like, it takes like 15 people, I think, to carry this litter that has these 2 Hutts on it. I was just like, and they still look like they're struggling. Oh, it was so good. I thought it was great. To see Black Chrysanthemum is really exciting. I am not an avid reader of the comics, but I did read some of the Afro ones, so that character was somewhat familiar to me from that. Very, very cool to see that they're actually giving a shout out to the comics in that way and bringing a character that we've only ever seen on page in that medium onto the screen in a really badass gladiator working for the... I mean, where is this going to go? I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, Shannon, I mean, Hutt's coming in. We had some Return of the Jedi references in the first section of the show, and now we really dial into this by having Hutt's showing up here live, and then Black Chrysanthemum, this kick-ass Wookiee coming in. Bruce Campozos, I love his comment. He said, yeah, the Black Wookiee came in like he owned the place. I'm not mad at it. So, I mean, really kind of scary to see him in here. What did you think, Shannon, about this section? And also, Garza Fwips, is she playing that she's nervous, or is she really nervous with having the Hutts here?
I mean, to me at least, she seemed legitimately nervous.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like the Hutts probably have not been there in a minute. And so now knowing that they have a new daimyo and suddenly Jabba's cousins have arrived, it seems like, okay, Tatooine might get a little more exciting right now. One of the funniest things as they walked in is we see a droid playing drums. The droid that had offered them drinks as they got into the sanctuary last episode, which immediately made me cackle. I mean, I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Max Rebo, the drummer called out today. Blinky,
Get to multitasking.
Drop your tray. It's time. You've earned the spotlight. But as they kind of come around the corner, watching the details of like the litter kind of sinking a bit in the center because you're holding 2 Hutts, really, really great detail. And also, if you kind of pause, you can see that some of the guys holding the litter, it's not just humans. Like a lot of times the go-to in a big production like this is the people in the background. You put them in a mask or they're just people. But you could see a Twi'lek. There was one other alien species out there that I was not able to recognize. Yes. Yeah. But the kind of gross semi-incestuous relationship that these twins seem to have, that they're kind of laying all over each other, and it's like at the end of last episode, like we didn't know like who's going to be the antagonist for this series. Is it going to be the mayor? Is it going to be somebody else? We now know who's going to be the antagonists for this series, that it's probably going to be these 2 twins. And watching Boba kind of go back into old school Fett, that he puts the helmet on, doesn't, like, he tells Finnick, watch my back, but he's like, he's not moving. Like, he is drawing a line in the sand. This is my place now. You have no claim. If we need to do this, let's do it. So it's setting the stage for something probably very exciting in the next 5 episodes.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, Boba Fett versus Black Chrysanthemum, holy Mary Mother of God. That's a pay-per-view main event, for God's sakes. This looks fantastic what they're lining up here. Did you like this? And are they ultimately the baddies in this series, or do you think this is another kind of red herring or whatever, that it's going, not the mayor now the Hutts come, maybe it's not the Hutts, who else could it be? Or do you think this is absolutely the battle for power now? The lines have been drawn between these 2 factions.
I mean, I think we're definitely going to see more of them, and they are one of the big baddies. They may not be all of the big baddies. I mean, I think the thing about the criminal underworld of Star Wars is it goes deep. Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see how deep they go. A couple things. Yeah, I didn't like this scene. I loved this scene. I like the Hutts, like bringing out 2 Hutts was amazing. I particularly love, I mean, obviously they've made a big deal out of the fact that Boba doesn't come on a litter. Like he's just walking on his own. But the Hutt, there's anti-gravity machines in this world. Like, the Hutts don't need 15 dudes. They could have something just float them out. Like, we've seen the technology. The fact that they have 15 dudes carrying them is literally like a show of power. It is literally a, look how badass we are. These people have to carry us, which I think is a amazing detail that just sort of, in a world that has technology, shows you how kind of shitty and awful the Hutts are, which I think is amazing. They were great. I love the details. I loved the fan. I loved that the other Hutt, the other twin, was dabbing himself with a rat.
Yeah.
And the rat bit him and tried to get away. Like, the details were just killing me. Black Chrysanthemum, like, I screamed. I love Doc Aphra, the comic book. If you've not checked out Doc Aphra, you should totally check it out. She is one of the coolest new creations of Star Wars, and that is where Black Chrysanthemum got his start, along with there's not just a bad Wookiee in those comics. There's a bad C-3PO named 000 and a bad R2-D2 named BT-1, who are just as badass. And yes, you can have a badass C-3PO. I know it sounds crazy, but it exists. But yeah, so him coming out just opens up an entire world that I didn't know we were going to dive into. Yeah. And he and Boba Fett have a history. Like, in the Darth Vader comics, like, they've like teamed up, like, they've worked together. And when Boba Fett says this guy, it's going to take more than some guy from the gladiatorial rings, like, that is where he came from. Like, he knows that. So the fact that everything from the comics is completely canon now was really, really exciting. I think the most interesting thing about this scene, and John touched on it, is the idea that they were like, we can't kill the Hutts without permission. Yeah. Because there is a council of Hutts. Like, we know that from Clone Wars. Like, they're all on Nal Hutta, the Hutt home planet, and there is a council of Hutts that are running a lot of things. And I don't know if it's you need permission from them, or if you need permission from some of the other crime syndicates to make a move against the Hutts. But this is, again, that thing that the mayor was talking about, that dealing with all of the politics of the criminal underworld is something that is going to be new to Boba. And I think watching him deal with that is going to be really, really interesting. So I think that's going to come back, like him getting the okay. And kind of to Laura's point about the Bib Fortuna of it all, I didn't think about that from the Vader comics, but what I did think, and might be a part of it too, is Bib Fortuna knew how this all worked. He was no stranger to this. He had been working with Jabba for years. So I think when he took over, he made sure that all the right hands were greased. He made sure that whoever needed to get their money was going to get their money, and they were more than happy to let him continue to do the work as long as everything kept moving. And I think what we're seeing is, as soon as Boba shot him and sat down and said, I'm going to do this now, he does not know which hands to grease. He does not know who to be kowtowing to. And so that's why the cousins are showing up right now. That's why the mayor is doing what he's doing. And I think that's a big piece of it too that we're going to see.
Yeah, well, that's why the Order of the Night Wind showed up. Yeah, all those things working through here. And hey, it might not be the Hutt Council. It could be Crimson Dawn. Ooh, I don't know, right? There's all kinds of possibilities when you open the door to all of that. And certainly we're going to see a reference to Crimson Dawn, or at least Solo in a little bit here. All right, let's move on. Well, actually, before we move on, let's hit some of these questions here, because I don't want people to get backed up with their questions. Let's roll through them real quick here. Serenity_Jane says, Black Chrysanthemum looks great. I can't wait to see how that encounter goes down between Boba and him. Love you guys and your breakdowns. Thank you, Serenity. Very kind of you. Let's see. We got a few more that have rolled through, but okay. Callum Fadian says, loving the show so far. That one Tusken Raider is badass. Yes, it's a female Tusken Raider. Thanks for being the best review show out there. Oh, that's very kind. I love each of your slightly different perspective on things. Much love from Wolverhampton, UK. All right.
Aww.
Shout out to the Wolves there. Say it with me. Divock Origi. Oh, he beat me to it. Fuck Divock Origi, by the way, Rocha. You got so lucky. Oh, yeah, that's the player for Liverpool who beat Wolves over the weekend. Max Cohen says, I know this is my own problem, but this show has been disappointingly small from what I was hoping for. Crime Syndicate, Game of Thrones stuff. I'm glad others are liking it, but one more flashback and I'm out. Yeah, throw this one out to you all. Are the flashbacks getting too much already in the second episode?
I mean, not to me.
Okay.
The first one I do think under-delivered a little bit. I mean, everything that was there I thought was good. I just think how it was executed was probably not the most exciting for everyone in the audience. So, I mean, in terms of the flashbacks are a problem, I don't want to watch it anymore.
Yeah.
I would say hold on, because just based off of the train action sequence, we're going to get some of that in the present day. That's my guess. So if flashbacks are not your thing, much respect.
Laura, Mike?
I mean, I think it's serving the story very well. And at this point, I think we've seen, and I really like what we got out of like all of the Tusken content in the last two episodes, especially this most recent one. I have a feeling, though, we've in a way sort of seen the completion of that journey. And we'll get into it obviously later in this review, but I wonder how much more flashback content we're going to have, or at least maybe we're not going to be with the Tuskens. Maybe we're going to be moving on to something else, but I don't mind it. I think it's serving the story in a way that it's supposed to. It seems to be working for me, at least.
All right, Mike, any issues with the flashbacks?
I mean, look, I'm with you. Like, I mean, the Crime Syndicate Game of Thrones idea of what Star Wars could be, I'm super, super excited about. I think you might be in for a slow burn, but I think you're going to get there. Like, I think they're building to that. I mean, we've seen what has happened in Clone Wars, and we've seen them build out this crime syndicate and kind of expand on what George Lucas sort of hinted at in Return of the Jedi. And I think that even just seeing the Pikes in the flashback in this episode, to me, starts to build out that crime syndicate thing that you're talking about. So I'm curious to see in the flashbacks kind of like why Boba wants to take over Jabba's in the first place. Like, Boba seemed perfectly content to be a bounty hunter for as much as we've known him. And I don't think the Sarlacc pit changed him, but I do think his time with the Tusken Raiders changed him. So I'm curious to see what else is going to happen with him in the time he spent with them that makes him go, oh, I'm going to go take over Jabba's entire crime empire.
Yeah.
And I think that in that respect, I'm kind of curious to see more of the flashbacks, but I'm curious to see them because ultimately, like you, I want to fully go live action into the crime side of the Star Wars universe in the way that they did in Clone Wars. So I think it might be a slow burn, but I think if you stick with it, you might get there.
Hey, if a lizard crawls up your nose and messes with your brain, who knows who you are afterwards. Travis Earl says, this is a show starring a person of Maori descent and is about him leading an indigenous people to self-determination. It's still audacious and progressive, and I love it. Absolutely, Travis. Fredtastic314 says, hey guys, Fennec eliminated the possibility of being overtaken by the assassins by killing one. A call to Mulan when Shan Yu killed the second soldier to relay the message to the Emperor. This is Michael Vogel's terrain. Boba shows great dependence to Fennec having her watch his back. Mike?
By the way, I love that part of Mulan. When I was like saw it the first time, I was like, Disney just killed a man. So I am with you. How many men does it take to deliver a message? Just one. It's good stuff.
All right, Max sent in a couple more real quick, and then we'll jump into the rest of the review here. I just feel unless we see Boba harness the Tuskens as a Fremantle stand-in for a larger conquest, I feel the flashback was too much for a gaffy stick. Max, I think there's more coming. Give the Star Wars a little more credit here. He said Freeman, not Fremantle. Freeman is what he meant, not Fremantle.
First of all, I thought you said Boba's harness, like we were going to see him shirtless in like a harness, and I got a little excited. But beyond that,
don't make me pull that picture out. Don't make me pull that picture out.
No, you can't show anybody that picture. Oh, whew, just made me blush. That is. Wow,
there's a story there.
You can show it to Laura. That's it. I do. It's kind of what I was saying before, Max. I think that it's more than just the gaffy stick. I don't think that the Boba Fett that crawled out of the Sarlacc pit has any desire to run a criminal empire. And I think him seeing what's going on with the Tuskens, and we're going to get into it in more detail, but even seeing the way that he sort of tells the Pikes, you got to pay money to these guys. Like, you don't get to do this. Yeah. I think that we're going to get some more of that kind of story that makes him go, oh, F all this, I'm going to run Tatooine because I see how this isn't fair to certain people. So I think that there's more than just this is how he learned to fight with a gaffy stick. And I might be wrong, but if I'm right, I think that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Shut up about the picture, John. I'm never sending you anything again.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Next section of the show. Oh, I love this show. Ladies and gentlemen, please keep sending in your Streamlabs and Super Chats. I'll be trying to get to them in between the sections of the show as we enter the back half of this show. So please send them in. It's pinned to the chat. It's in the description of the video, and it's on the screen there. All right, we go back to the back to tank and Boba's flashbacks to the Tusken Raiders. Boba is being trained on how to use this gaffy stick by the Tusken Raider who beat him up at night in the first episode. This is very reminiscent, these scenes here, for me, of The Last Samurai, when that actor, oh God, I can't remember his name, the actor who was in Mortal Kombat, he teaches Tom Cruise how to use the samurai sword by having him use a stick instead. It's a fantastic sequence, and I feel like there's shades of it here. Anyway, the little Tusken and the Raider who was with him last episode is there with their massives, and they're watching this happen. Just then, some creature jumps out from the sand, and a Tusken kills it, and we hear this loud growl in the distance, and the Tuskens prepare to fight it. It's some sort of train that has people there shooting out from the side. I mean, this is stagecoaches from the Old West shooting at Native Americans so they can pass. And we see the aftermath of their killings here. We see all these bodies, young bodies, banthas that are dead, and they are burning their dead. The Tuskens are in a ritual at night. Boba walks out and notices some land speeders, and he says he will stop the train, and all he needs is a rifle and a stick. The head Tusken allows him to do that. Boba heads to this settlement or town. Is that Tashi Station? I made these notes as I was writing. And
I think it might be, though. I think it might be.
And this bar where these two humans are being intimidated by some form of alien swoop biker gang. And of course, we find out later that's Cammy and Fixer, for God's sakes. Luke's friends who were on the cutting room floor of A New Hope. Fixer steps up, pushes back, and he's immediately attacked. Just then, fantastic Western reference, and also a reference to the first episode of The Mandalorian. We see this door open and the shadow of Boba on the wall. And then Boba walks in like a mother-effing badass and proceeds to kick the crap out of everybody, and even pulls out his war face, which I've rarely seen in films or shows. The Temuera Morrison war face is a scary war face. And then when it's all over, he doesn't ask who these humans are, doesn't ask their names, just calmly walks out, and the bartender calmly cleans up the glass on the bar, and Boba takes the bikes. Shannon, what a hell of a thing here. First, we're getting into Boba learning how to use the gaffy stick with that Tusken Raider. We're seeing this train referencing kind of old West films, Westerns from way back in the day, and this idea that they are the indigenous people. So we're seeing it from the indigenous point of view here, and then Boba taking it upon himself to go on this mission and help the Tusken Raiders who have brought him back to life. What did you think of this whole section here in the show?
I mean, this was the beginning of some of my favorite parts of the show. I mean,
Okay.
One, seeing his acceptance into this world. I mean, prior to this, Boba Fett had a notorious reputation as one of the most fearsome bounty hunters in the galaxy.
Right.
And that being said, a Tusken who doesn't have much technology outside of like single shot blaster rifles is able to kind of eat his lunch. And so you see the way he's trying to learn. Like he's getting frustrated because there's sort of a shared language that they have, but most of it, it's not clear. Like they're doing sort of the basic amount of communication they can to move forward. Watching the train come in, it's so interesting that you wonder how these conflicts get started, because the Tuskens have to know at this point, whatever's on that train is technologically superior. It's too fast. It's too much firepower. But they still take a stand every time. And so there's just something noble about that. Like they could very easily run and hide, but this is the one place where they are drawing that line in the sand, and are not and aren't just backing down. And also for the pikes on the train, which we don't know are pikes right off the bat.
Right.
Why come out guns blazing? Like what happened initially? So, I mean, it seems like, based off of what we learn later in the episode, it sure seems like it's the pikes that drew first blood. But
yeah,
I mean, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, and we'll find out definitely in the next section for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, and then Fett going to this tavern in the Dune Sea. I mean, look, you don't take a date to a tavern in the Dune Sea. You're just kind of asking for problems. But then the difference in the sort of in the directors here, like this close combat fight between Fett and the gang, it just, to me, it just felt like it was just shot better. Like despite the fact that it's still the same, 1 versus 10 or whatever, even though it was 2 versus 10, 4 versus 10 in the first episode, this just felt more exciting. And to Temuera Morrison's Warface, when he's able to grab one of the gang members with the gaffy stick and sort of replicate that move that the Tusken warrior showed him, that he was just able to toss this dude into the side. And as soon as he's done, he has himself a drink, he grabs the bikes, and he goes. Just a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. And if you want to see the young Temuera Morrison Warface, watch this film, Once We're Warriors. It's an unsettlingly powerful film about that culture. So you should definitely watch that one to see young Temuera Morrison. Michael, what do we got here? We got Boba kind of learning the gaffy stick a little bit more. We got Boba connecting with his young Tuskens some more. And then we got Boba going on this mission after the train sequence, in essence, trying to kind of pay them back. But we also have Cammy and Fixer. So can you enlighten people on who Cammy and Fixer are?
Yeah, I mean, look, you guys kind of laid it out really well as far as the Tuskens go, but it is really, we kind of saw him in the first episode, like he was their captive, he fought the giant Ray Harryhausen monster that Shannon hated, he kind of won their respect, but now you see sort of the day-to-day that he's living where they've kind of accepted him as one of their own and they're trying to train him, and this female Tusken Raider is my favorite Tusken. I mean, I didn't have a favorite Tusken Raider before because I didn't think too much about Tusken Raiders, but now I for sure have a favorite Tusken Raider, and it's she. She is amazing. And seeing all the details of that, the train comes. I think we all thought it was a sandworm at some point. We were all like, okay, Dune is here.
Dune, right?
And then they start shooting, and you really realize what's going on here. And I mean, you can't ignore the shades of this is the Old West. Those are the cowboys, those are the white people, we're the indigenous people. But really kind of seeing seeing Boba's genuine anger and genuine distress at what happened to the Tuskens. He's upset about it. Yeah. And he's like, I'm gonna go deal with this. And look, the fact that they give him a gun and they're he's like, I'm gonna go, I'll be back by sunset. And the fact that they or sunrise, and the fact that they trust him, you really do see, even before we get to some of the stuff that happens later, that he really has won their respect. They really do trust this guy. And then I just love that he just fucking walks through the desert. This was the first moment, him walking through the desert by himself, where I was like, well, I'm having Burning Man flashbacks. Clearly the Burning Man flashbacks get more intense as the episode goes on. But I bet. but he walks up, and I do think it is Tosche Station, which is mostly confirmed by the fact that the two humans that are there are Cammy and Fixer. And if you don't know, there's a deleted scene from episode 4 where Luke and I forget who, one other person, and these two characters, Cammy and Fixer, are all watching the sky, and they see some stuff going down, and they're at Tosche Station. And these are two of Luke's buddies, Cammy and Fixer, that he hung out with on Tatooine, that got cut from the movie, that never existed, that most of us growing up have no idea who they are. And yet, if you're a hardcore nerd and this is what Easter eggs are made of, that is who this is. This is Cammy and Fixer chilling at Tosche Station. Their good buddy Luke is off, saving the entire galaxy, and they're dealing with these fucking biker assholes. And thank God Boba walks in like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger at the beginning of Terminator 2 and takes them all out. And I mean, I think Shannon said it all best. The only thing I will say, and this is probably my only critique of the episode, is Temuera Morrison's teeth are rivaled only by Ben Affleck's teeth in Michael Bay's Armageddon.
How dare you? You're going to teeth shame him?
Listen, I'm just saying.
Are you an anti-dentite? What are you doing?
I am not an anti-dentite. And look, I'm super happy about all of it. But I have not seen teeth that have been purchased for somebody like this since Ben Affleck's teeth in Armageddon. They are very bright.
dare you.
And somebody should do something to calm them down a little bit. That's all I'm saying. It's the only distracting thing about the episode. In an otherwise almost perfect episode.
Yeah.
I do appreciate, I love the war face. I thought this was a badass scene. I love everything about it. But this was the moment where I was like, oh, those are some teeth.
Don't watch Tom Cruise and Taps. Those are some people as well. Behringer says, so are we going to ignore the lizard in the nose? Behringer, it's your first time? We're going to get to it. Relax. We're almost there.
We're going to get to the lizard in the nose.
Yeah, don't worry about it. All right, Laura Kelly, talk to me about this sequence here with Boba kind of taking more of the initiative to help this, to help the Tusken Raiders kind of show them the way. And this is very interesting too, Laura, because as this goes along, we've seen before where it's the white savior complex in numerous films. Now, this is the term that people use to look back on decades of films and TV shows where it's been a white person coming in to help the indigenous people, like Dance with Wolves, even Dangerous Minds, going into a white person going into an inner city to teach them. This is a person of color teaching an indigenous people how to kind of climb out of this way they've been living so they can at least somehow be equal with these people, these off-worlders who've settled here. What did you think about the beginning of him embracing being, in essence, kind of a hero to these Tusken Raiders?
I mean, I think it's a good point, the white savior complex that's happening here. But I think that it is interesting because Temuera Morrison is not white.
Right, exactly.
But I think that I really think the main point maybe they're trying to make is just like another side of what we've already seen of these Tusken Raiders. I mean, the only thing that we've ever seen of them before, besides what we got in Mandalorian, was our protagonists being completely evil to them. And you know, it's sort of being returned. So I think it's just meant to show another side. If people are interpreting that, maybe they're that way, maybe they're not hitting the nail exactly on the head. I'm not sure, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm with Vogel, where I really like this warrior Tusken Raider has been so much fun to watch. And just in these first two episodes, I immediately flash back to Star Wars Rebels when we saw Boba Fett with the training stick. We got that sort of similar feel with Sabine and Ezra in Star Wars Rebels. So that I went right back to that. Wow. But I thought that this was really fun. And it's one of those things that I really like about Din Djarin as well, is that he's very willing to learn and he's very open to that. And we're getting that with Boba in these scenes too. And it's just one of those things that I really appreciate, especially from a character that I think we always sort of saw as an antagonist. It's just a different side. The returning to Tashi Station, I think, has been a lot of fun. I think this was a really fun little cameo that they threw Cammy and Fixer in. I believe those deleted scenes are on Disney Plus, so you can go watch them somewhere. If they're not, they're on YouTube. Cammy also appears in the Last Jedi novelization. In the first chapter or the prologue or something, Luke has like a dream or a vision where he's married to her, and it's basically a whole thing where he's kind of examining what his life would have been like if he had never left Tatooine in episode 4. It's a really interesting scene, so definitely worth checking out as well. But I enjoyed our little jaunt over to Tashi Station, and I'm glad that they sort of circled back to these raiders that were on these speeder bikes that we saw in the first episode that Boba Fett saw and had to actually avert his eyes while they were attacking the farmer that lived there. I'm glad that they brought them back and sort of came back to that story. Still curious about what their symbol means that they were carving into the house. I'm kind of hoping that we'll get that at some point, but who knows?
Oh, I hope so. I wouldn't imagine. I don't think they would have highlighted it for not, Laura. So I hope we do touch on it for sure. By the way, the two actors there, Cammy Marstrap is Mandy Kowalski, and Skylar Bible is who's playing Fixer. And of course, the original movie it was Koo Stark and Anthony Forrest playing those characters. So nice to see them pop up. We'll see what role they have to play as we get into these next few episodes. And giving some credit to the female Tusken Raider, Joanna Bennett is the female Tusken Raider. She's been a stunt double for Brie Larson in Captain Marvel, for Karen Gillan in Avengers Endgame, and for Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman. So this young lady gets around, representing some badass ladies. So good to see her getting a little bit of a highlight. We'll see if they ever take their masks off or take their coverings off, and we'll see if it ends up being her, but we shall see down the road. I really started to
wonder in this episode what they look like under there.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever actually thought about it before, but it was in this episode that I was like, what is going on under there?
Ooh, I bet they won't. I don't think they will.
I don't think they will.
I'm like,
keep that mystery.
I like the mystery. I would say just leave it, but we'll see.
In the past, I was afraid to see what was in there. Now I'm curious because of what we got more. And also, just to let you guys know, there's over 400 of you all watching us live. Thank you very much for joining us on this Friday night. Please make sure you hit a like on this video as you're watching us. Want to get as many likes as possible. And if you're watching later, and as many of you do, please leave a comment down below. Let us know what you thought about everything we're talking about here on the show. All right, so let's keep going here in the next section. The next morning, Boba arrives back at the Tusken settlement with the bikes. The Tuskens start to take the bikes apart, but Boba makes them stop and says he will teach them to ride them, and that's how he will stop the train. Now, at this point, I want to stop for a second and read the email from my friend who's Native American, who represents Native Americans in Oklahoma. He sent to me for the chapter 2 of the Boba Fett, the flashback scene, really focuses on the tribal dynamic of the Tusken people and their ancestral claim to the lands. There is a moment where Boba steals the speeder bikes as a gift to the chief or leader. Some Tuskens begin to take apart the bike, which is a reference to how natives treated horses when they were first gifted by them. We did not see the horses as labor workers or transport. We saw them as food and material. So we actually took apart the first gifts of transport because of our previous relationship with animals, just as the Tuskens do with their relationship to the machine. So that's a fantastic viewpoint from a Native American, Tushka, who's watching us right now. So Tushka, thanks so much for sending that in to me, emailing me so I could read it here on the show. Anyway, Boba is training a few Tuskens on these speeder bikes, and this is a fantastic sequence, training them to jump from speeder bike to speeder bike, how fast it goes to match how fast the train goes. It gives the young Tusken a task to use the mirror to kind of show the light to when the train is coming. Then we go back to the training for Boba on the gappy stick as they prep the area to attack the train. When it comes, they spot the train and get ready to attack it. And here's an awesome sequence. I'm not going to go beat by beat through this awesome sequence here where they line up to attack it, and the shooters from the side, those assholes kill a bantha, those mother effers. The kid signals the train is coming, and the Tusken snipers start to take out the people inside of the train who are shooting at the Tuskens. Boba saves a Tusken who was almost killed. They mount the top of the train together. And I wrote, this is some Mission Impossible / solo shit here. The Tusken who was training Boba comes in on her bike rather, and slams it into the middle, causing the droid driving the train to speed up the train. By the way, the droid in the train, best part. I love that sequence with every time we had a shot of him freaking out was the best. And him climbing through the window and jumping out was the best. He climbs into one of the cars, Boba does, and takes out the other. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The Tusken Raider, the female Tusken Raider climbs into one of the cars, takes out all the other shooters in the cab, including the ones who were sticking out from the top. Boba's fighting one of these guys on the train, and suddenly that engine blaster goes off. Boba gets to the front of the train, smashes through the window, tells the droid to stop the train. The droid puts its hands up and then jumps out the window, which is awesome. And then Boba ends up using his gappy stick to stop the train. Later, Boba is sitting almost on a throne and asks who the leader is, and he asks if they are carrying Sansana spice from the slave mines of Kessel. Interesting. We thought you were uncivilized raiders, the guy says. We were trying to protect our route. And Boba responds saying, these people lay ancestral claim to the Dune Sea and says they need to pay a toll to pass. The pikes do. He tells them to walk and tells them they will be protected by the Tuskens and they can fill their melons with water to help them survive. Boba gets the head nod from the lead Tusken. Mike, so much to jump into here. What did you think about this whole sequence and everything that happened here between Boba and the Tuskens working together, and then later when he's essentially sitting on a makeshift throne, handing out edicts?
Well, so the training sequence was delightful. I mean, that was the right time. That's the right kind of comedy for Star Wars. Like, it was just exactly right. Like Boba being like, I'm going to try and show you how to do this. The Tusken Raider going backwards. And it was just like, it was a very satisfying montage. Like, you know what you're going to see. You know they're going to get better. You know they're going to do it. But seeing them sort of be awkward, the multiple jumps, like I don't quite have this figured out. I'm going slow. I'm going fast. And them kind of getting adept at using this technology. Like, it sometimes you watch something and it surprises you, and that's the thrill. And sometimes you watch something and it does exactly what you expect it to do, but it does it really, really well. And that's what this montage is. You know they're going to get good at it. You know where this is going, but it's still really, really fun to watch. As we said earlier at the top of this, like, the train sequence is, I mean, it's a great Star Wars action sequence. It is completely satisfying. It's amazing to watch. It's thrilling. It's surprising. And kind of to your point, when that female, like, there's a lot of great moments, like Boba kind of rescuing the Tusken Raider, like going backwards, getting the Tusken Raider, hooking the train right before his speeder explodes. Like, there's so many great sequences. Them all running along the train as the pikes are all popping out. But when that female Tusken Raider sees what's going down and shoots her shot and flies her speeder bike through that gap, explodes the train and jumps in, and you don't even have to show her kicking ass inside the train because we've already established what a badass she is. So just watching her move through the train from the outside and seeing pikes flying out, like, that's my favorite part of the entire action sequence. Like, it's just like the fact that she's like, I see what's got to go on. I'm gonna take these guys out. I agree that droid, in a world where we have so many different kinds of droids, the fact that they gave us a new droid, and I was like, yeah, he's cool. I'm into this droid. Let's see more of him. All of it was great. And all of that was overshadowed by my joy to see the Pikes in live action. I know we sort of saw the Pikes in Solo, but we never really saw them without their masks, and it kind of felt like we didn't really go there. And even though these Pikes don't quite have the extreme character design of the Pikes within the Clone Wars animated series, when they take those masks off, it's clearly the Pikes. And kind of their attitude that they have when they're talking to Boba is clearly the Pikes. And also, if you are someone who has watched Clone Wars or any of the animated Star Wars stuff and is aware of the Pikes, they're badass and they're scary. So Boba definitely made an enemy on this day. And I'm really interested, as we talk about the Hutts and who you need to get permission to kill a Hutt, and how hard it is to run a family and how hard it is to enter the crime syndicate. The fact that he encountered the Pikes, who clearly were doing something that they never would have done under Jabba and probably under Bib Fortuna. I'm really curious to see what him tussling with the Pikes does in the long run for him, as far as his attempts to take over his criminal empire.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, they take the spice from Kessel and sell it as a drug. So, I mean, Crimson Dawn, Kira, I feel like this has to happen at some point down the road here, for God's sakes. I mean, you know, I like these comments from our viewers here. 310 to Tatooine. That's very, very funny. I like that. So I appreciate that. All right. What do you think here, Laura Kelly? What stood out for you from this sequence? This awesome action sequence, and then all the stuff that went on afterwards is a little more of the political intrigue. Him making the Pikes walk in single file, him telling them they can survive on just one black melon, and sending them to Anchorhead so they can get passage off of Tatooine. What do you think about all of this here?
Honestly, I don't know if I have a whole lot more to add after what Vogel said, but there was, this warrior character that we're getting in the Tusken. She's just so cool, and that scene really stood out to me too. One of the things I had in my notes from the first time I watched this was, they kind of look like the Pikes. Interesting. And then it wasn't until we actually got to see them a little bit more up close later. They very much are designed a lot more to look like the ones that we got in the Clone Wars. So I really like that they decided to go that route as opposed to what we got in Solo. Yeah. But it was just kind of an interesting design choice because, once you have that, asset and you have those costumes, you think that they would just reuse them. But I like that we took the time to sort of go in a different direction here. So I appreciated that. This weird function that the train has where it can kind of power up and surge forward was just really neat to see. Just added an extra layer of intrigue as to what this was. I would love to get more of these long speeders, I think is what they called them. I don't think we're going to see them again, but I would really like to, because I like trains and I liked this entire sequence. I liked the train heist in Solo too, but this was also so well executed. So it was just overall really fun thing to see. I did think it was interesting that Boba was the one to sort of be in charge of all of this when it was all sort of said and done. I mean, I imagine most of that was for the communication language barrier, but it was just an interesting choice. But I'd be curious to see if we actually pick up at all with the Pikes in the next episode, or get any sort of hint as to what happened to them if they actually made it across the desert. I would think that more people in this show would be afraid of crate dragons. That has not come up yet for somehow. That was what my first thought was when we first saw the train in this. My thought I didn't go to Dune. I went to Star Wars, and my thought was crate dragon. But this was I think a really, really fun sequence. I'm really enjoying the flashbacks overall. I have no problem staying in this sort of half and half format that we're getting with the show so far. But like I said, I have a feeling that we're going to kind of, I sort of suspect that we're going to be moving on at some point soon.
Yeah, probably true, Laura. Another one here from Tushka Productions, The Good, the Bad, and the Tusken. I like that.
Nice.
Shannon, you're the action guy on this show. Talk to us. I mean, you spoke about this in your first comments when you came on the show, talking about how much more you enjoy the action in this episode than you did in the first episode with Boba fighting the Order of the Nightwind there. This hell of a bar to raise with this train sequence. What did you think of this?
Yeah, this was just a really well plotted out sequence. And one thing essential to a really good action sequence is that you're emotionally invested in the characters. And having that training sequence, watching Fett train the Tuskens, like, all right, this is how you do this is how you do that. You're automatically on their side. You want them to succeed. There's not a whole lot I can add to what everyone has already said. I mean, the sort of the engine that makes the train kind of lurch forward, which in my head, when I'm thinking of this type of stuff, I'm just like, why do you need that if the thing's already, well, it's like, oh, it's when you're going up and down dunes, you need that to kind of power you over the top of it, just in case it's too steep. I love a train without tracks. I mean, I that type of thing is always just kind of like the coolest for me. The Tusken warrior is the star of this. I mean, when you see her sort of propel the speeder bike in between the two cars, and as Vogel said, like, you don't need to see each individual action beat with her because we've established who the character is. And she's not the lead. I mean, you're staying on Boba Fett. And so watching her jump into a car and immediately you see a pike fly out. It's like, yep, that's perfect. That's all we need. Using the hatches on the train to kind of not only use for cover for blaster fire, but also to use for cover for the fire that the engine is spitting out. All that's super smart. The droid that you guys have already mentioned, that in lieu of surrendering, he just jumps out a window. I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then you see the droid. At first I thought he was going to land in pieces, because you see like the dust cloud, the ba 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 da, 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 as it kind of comes to rest. Props up like a spider, very General Grievous like, and then takes off. The great thing with the pikes, like, one, I don't think we've ever seen them without their helmets on. Am I mistaken in that?
I don't think so.
Seeing that it's another sort of aquatic species, or at least what it appears to me to be another aquatic species. They look kind of like the Mon Calamari, and I thought they looked like fish. Do you disagree, Vogel?
No, I think I'm trying to remember specifically, but I feel like in Clone Wars we've seen pikes without their masks on, but maybe I'm wrong, Laura?
I don't remember.
I'm not sure. I don't remember. I know that they're not on a water world. They're on, like, I think all of their stuff is like high up in the sky. I'm not totally sure what is happening on the surface of that planet, but
I mean, the thing that, like, as you guys already pointed out, the thing that really is sort of distinct for the pikes is sort of those long skulls and those tiny little faces. But it's, I mean, to me, as I think, as Vogel said, like, the Boba Fett has made a lasting enemy in the pikes, and I think the pikes are probably going to play out through the rest of the series. Like, whatever happens with them basically wanting attacks to cross the sand, I don't think the pikes are going to take that lightly, and that whatever the pikes are up to right now, I think they might be sort of Boba Fett's motivation for wanting to take over the crime syndicate.
Interesting.
I mean, the pikes are as dangerous as the Hutts, I think. So
right. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, looking at them, very much looks aquatic to me, for sure. And, you know, he mentioned the Dune Sea, and we do get a conversation with the Tusken Raiders when they talk about how the water went away. Like, is this the possibility that both the Tuskens, the Jawa, the Pikes, these were all people who were or species that were underwater, and now in order to survive in certain ways, like the Tuskens are covering themselves up because any exposure could cause them to die in some way to the sun or whatever. I mean, there's possibilities here that are endless if they dive deeper into the ecological history of the planet. So
I forgot how much the lead Pike's costume sort of looks like Star Trek-y until you pulled it up again just there.
Yeah, it does,
like,
right?
Interesting choice.
Well, that's not the only Star Trek reference we get in this episode, for damn sure. One thing to let you guys know about, let me bring this picture up here. This is a picture of an ancient a Maori in the past here. That gaffy stick looks this is what it was fashioned after. The gaffy stick there. It is a Fijian weapon that is called a totokia. And Boba demonstrates just how effective the weapon's spike head can be, and especially with the combination with a sharpened spear on the end. So kind of interesting that a Kiwi actor like Temuera Morrison with his Pacific background gets to use this and learn how to use it in Star Wars. So what an interesting way to have things kind of come together. Who knew that years ago when they cast him, it was going to lead to this kind of thing. So just a fantastic bit of serendipity for sure with his casting. We do have a couple of Streamlabs that have come through. One from Jonathan Gabay. Oh, Jesus Christ. How did Bebop and Rocksteady get into the Star Wars universe? Well, I imagine, is that a Gamorrean Guard reference? Is that what that is?
Jonathan, I will explain to you Star Wars when I see you in an hour, which I'm going to see you because you're making me dinner. I'll explain to you Star Wars then. Now let other people have their comments.
and donate a little bit more there, Moneybags. All right, Philly G says, I love the Geek Buddies, and the only thing the Tuskens need to do is put up a toll booth like in Blazing Saddles. Easy money. That's fun. That's good, Phil. That's good. You are good. And Tushka donated here. He said, thank you so much for reading my observation. Thank you, Tushka. What if scenario, the Jawas and the Tuskens are aquatic creatures like the Pikes, but just impoverished and never left Tatooine? They could all have a common connection to the water planet that Tatooine used to be.
Yeah.
That's certainly very, very possible. So we shall see. All right, let's get into, thank you so much for those Streamlabs, donate, and super chats. Keep them coming as we go into the back half or the last section here of the episode. Later that night, after this whole thing has happened here, the head Tusken is telling him the history of the Tuskens and the many tribes. Very indigenous. Oh, that's another thing I want to make a reference to before we move on here. The train sequence, very reminiscent of Lawrence of Arabia, when Lawrence is helping the Bedouin tribes go after these trains because these trains are going through their homeland without their permission, and he ends up kind of setting bombs to blow these trains up. So very similar to that, shades of it for sure. And now we're getting in the idea of the indigenous people here later that night. As I said, the head Tusken is telling him the history of the Tuskens and their many tribes, which is very reminiscent, of course, of indigenous people here, Native Americans here in this country. He tells them that since the oceans dried, they have hidden and they have killed to survive. The Tusken leader says the off-worlders, that's the first time I've heard that term in Star Wars. I know I've heard it in Blade Runner. First time I've heard it in Star Wars, have their technology. He says he has a gift for Boba because he is a good guide. They give him this little, Boba's like, he's almost like overwhelmed. Like, oh, I don't need anything. I'm fine. It was good just to help. And he brings out this little kind of basket and opens the basket, and they give him a lizard. They throw some spikes on his face, and the lizard goes inside his head out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, I wrote this down, the mother effer is walking on the spiritual plane. And we get Boba visions now. We see him walking in the desert at night, walking to a leafless tree with red eyes, watching him from different branches. And the tree starts to envelop him just as the Sarlacc pit did, starts to have those visions of the Sarlacc pit, visions of Camino, visions of holding his father's helmet again. We see him as a kid watching Django leave in the Osprey ship, with the Slave One ship, whatever you want to say. Boba breaks the branch as the music crescendos and a wave crashes on the shore. Well, I've had these visions. The young Tusken sees Boba walk from the desert. Michael knows I've had those visions. Anyway, walk from the desert with a broken branch from the vision in his hands. So that happened. The lead Tusken walks up and opens the case where the lizard was, the little basket there, and it jumps out of Boba's head. Very reminiscent of Star Trek II Wrath of Khan when they have that thing climb into their ears, except this is for a good reason. He has Boba show him the branch. Then they lead him into the tent, and they use the branch. This is essentially the natural where the lightning hits the tree when his father dies, and he uses the wood to build Wonder Boy the bat. This is essentially him building his Wonder Gaffy stick, and Boba is now naked in the tent and he is dressed in the new garb, and it is the garb that he wears in The Mandalorian when we first saw him in season 2. It is also a way of him accepting being a Tusken Raider officially, very reminiscent of Lawrence of Arabia when they give him the robes, the white robes, and he kind of shows who he can be. And Boba even stands out and whips his side open so you can see who he is, and it's shot from below, which is very cool. And he is led to a shop of some kind. And I said, and his branch is turned into his own gaffy stick, and he heads to the nighttime gathering of the Tuskens, and they have this awesome ritual here around the fire, dancing around, and Boba joins in as if he instinctively, organically knows the moves, and it is a fantastic end to this episode. Laura Kelly, so much here, a full acceptance of Boba into the Tusken culture here as well. And what did you think about this whole sequence with the lizard and the dreams and the visions? What do you got?
The lizard was fantastic. I love that we get just like every once in a while, they just put like this little tiny moment of great humor with Boba Fett specifically. And this was our great little moment of humor in this episode with it's a tricky little bugger. I loved this scene so much. I was very confused as to where they were going with it, but I love how it played out. Very much getting like the ancestral plane vibes that we had in Black Panther from this whole tree. And even sort of the design of it all, it kind of looked similar. I made a note about the red eyes because I wasn't sure exactly what that was supposed to be in the background. And then when I watched the concept art being played over the credits at the end, they have Tusken Raiders standing behind them. That was their eyes. So that was, I don't know. I thought that was an interest. I'm like, are their eyes red in the dark? We haven't seen that, I guess. So I don't know. But yeah, the visions that he's having where he's walking through the desert and he's flashing back to Camino and all of the branches are like swallowing him up. It was just like the way, and then even the way that they sort of made it very like kind of trippy. It was really cool. And I really, again, did not know where this was going until we got the actual branch when he was walking back with it. That whole scene was so cool. How we had like a gaffy stick smith kind of helping him carve it out. And the fact that that was a really cool find, John, that you showed how the original.
Credit to Screen Rant. They did a whole article on it. So I wanted to use that, but yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It was very cool. The getting dressed scene, I just I don't know why, where he's getting, his black cloak and he's getting the arm wrappings. I don't know why, but it made me very emotional watching it. I thought it was whatever they did a really good job of it. Because if you had asked me 2 years ago if I was going to get emotional about Boba Fett in any sense of it, I would have slapped you in the face. There's just no way. I don't know how we got here, but I'm glad to be here. And yeah, the dancing at the end was just the most perfect thing. It was the coolest way to, I don't know how these people do it. They just do such a good job. I was so excited to see that this episode was directed by a woman. By the end of it, it was just, the whole thing was so thrilling. In this end scene, dancing around the fire in a circle with everyone slowly gradually joining in, was just so joyous. And I hope we get more of it and more of the Sand People.
Yeah, Shannon, we've been on this journey in flashbacks. Laura mentioned this earlier, that maybe this is the end of the Tusken flashbacks, or we're getting to the end of the Tusken flashbacks. What did you think of all of this and his, Chavez, seeing the chicken, watching the spiritual plane from Young Guns type scene. This is so interesting to see him go through. And I thought it was visually incredibly well directed. We talk about Steph Green. You mentioned her earlier, Shannon. Not just the action sequence. A sequence like this can fall apart just as easily as a badly shot train action sequence, and it works so well. So she showed herself in 52 minutes to be adept at directing multiple different types of genres: political intrigue, action, and also something like this. So what did you think about this last section of the episode?
To the Steph Green of it, I'm curious, with this being 7 episodes, is going to be a similar format to how they've to what they used on The Mandalorian. Are you going to have your kind of 4 directors where everyone is kind of in the room at the same time, and you it's almost like a rotation. I hope we get to see Steph Green behind the camera again, because yes, I agree. Everything in this episode, where I didn't necessarily love the first one, this one just checked all the right boxes for me. That moment where the chieftain offers him his gift in this wicker basket, and you see the lizard, and sort of Fett's reaction to a lizard. Thank you. It's getting that birthday gift or that Christmas gift from a relative where you don't know exactly what to do with it. And as an audience member, I was in the same spot. I'm kind of like, oh, is this going to take him someplace? And then you see it jump into his nose. And like, I am not the best swimmer. Like I will plug my nose a lot to get my head under the water. So the idea of something jamming itself up my nose, and when the chieftain says it's going to guide you from inside your head, I'm like, oh my god, that thing's in his head right now. It was just such a visceral sequence. But then you start to go into his past, and you think about the trauma that has been his life, like seeing your father killed in front of you. Maybe not having the closest relationship with, like, you see the ship flying away as we get sort of that reflective shot of young Daniel Logan. Really, really interesting. And then, yes, I definitely got the Black Panther vibes as well, sort of the ancestral plane vibes. Yeah. And then watching, like, I kind of, as soon as there was a tree, I'm like, oh, this is where he's gonna make his gaffy stick. And then that whole sequence with the Stick Smith, I guess, as they're working on it together, like it's something that sorry, getting emotional. Sorry, that's something you would do with a parent. And it was like, oh my gosh, that was just such a beautiful sequence. And then as they are around the fire at the end, and you see his sort of full acceptance into this society, like it was a beautiful sequence. And my fear, which is that whatever role he's going to play with the Tuskens in the future of these flashbacks, that it's probably leading to a tragic place. That's my guess.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. Maybe. All right, okay. Shannon. Great point. Real quick, when you dream about trees, this is what I'm looking up here. Our lives are made up of past, which is the roots of the tree, the present, the trunk of the tree. When you dream about the tree and you focus on the branches, that's talking about your future. So maybe a little bit of symbolism here that he was grabbing the branch and what have you. So, Michael, what did you think about this whole sequence here and the vision and the astral plane and all of this here, but also Boba getting closer with the Tuskens, revealing their history, revealing their culture's history to him, and then essentially welcoming him? I know the lizard thing is funny, but that was their way of welcoming him to be a part of them.
Well, I mean, I think that's what Star Wars does so well, and what a really good story does so well is comedy and drama and comedy and seriousness don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can have a moment that's really genuine, which is the Tuskens letting him into their culture and saying, we now accept you as one of our own, and we want you to go on this journey that I assume we send our young Tuskens on. And that he now gets to do that to get his gaffy stick. Like, he's 100% part of their tribe now. So it's cool. But it's also really funny. And it's like, it's great that those two things can coexist. But like now, let's talk about this vision.
Oh boy, here we go.
I see that we have 466 people watching and we only have 208 likes. So if you are on board with me on this vision quest, smash that like button. But I thought it was super interesting. As someone who has been to Burning Man multiple times, I have not had a lizard go up my nose, but I have absolutely been on this trip that Boba went on. Have I been in the desert and it looked like the ocean? 1,000% yes. So I thought it was really interesting because, like, obviously we all know, and we were talking about it, like, Tatooine used to have water. It was the Dune Sea. So him walking through the desert and seeing an ocean obviously makes sense, but it also just ties him directly back to Kamino, where he is from, where he has his relationship with Jango Fett. So I think it was really cool. It did that double duty of, we are literally in the Dune Sea, but we also are hearkening back to Kamino. And it's not just one tree. There's a giant tree that he gets trapped in, but there's a smaller tree as well. And I think that is Jango and Boba. Like, I think this entire thing, much like Luke's journey in Empire, is all about him and his dad. We now have another Star Wars vision that is all about our main character and his father. Kamino is all about Jango Fett. He goes to these two trees. There's a smaller tree and a bigger tree, which represents his dad. He keeps seeing himself in his armor in his, which is also reminiscent of his dad's armor. He goes up into this tree, which is very much Django. And Django was a bounty hunter. And he, thus far in his life, has gone on this journey where he's been following in his dad's footsteps. Yeah. But he goes into this tree, and the tree wraps around him. And then we see flashes of the Sarlacc pit, which was going to destroy him. And I think we're really kind of saying, if you keep going in the direction that your dad is going, if you keep going down this bounty hunter road, you're going to be destroyed. And we even see that shot of young Boba looking at his dad's helmet, or looking into the helmet, and we see the reflection of his face. It's Temuera Morrison's face. So it's Jango Fett's face, it's Boba's face, it's in the helmet. It's just like Luke when Darth Vader's mask explodes and he sees his own face. Like Boba is looking at this, and everything about this, even that shot of Jango Fett flying away on Kamino, which probably really did happen, is also like, this is one path that you can take, and you're going away. And this entire journey is about him saying, I'm not going down this road anymore. I am no longer Boba Fett, the bounty hunter, following in my father's footsteps. He breaks the branch. He breaks free of his father's influence and takes this stick and says, I'm embracing the Tusken Raiders influence instead, and like walks away. So like, I was clearly all up in this vision thing. I watched it like 10 times. I was like, what does all this mean? And I was super, super into it. And look, visions are meant to be interpreted. I could be 1,000% wrong about all of it. But I think as far as visions go, I'm probably on the right track based as far as on where we think Boba's going to be going in this series. Absolutely. Smash that like button.
Well, go ahead, Mike.
Well, and then just really, really quickly, I mean, everybody already said it, but him getting up to dance, and like him and the female Tusken kind of doing the ceremonial dance with the gaffy sticks, and then each one of them one by one getting up and having this joyous dance around the fire where they were all in sync and they were all like just in the zone together. Like it's what Laura said. It was a beautiful moment. And all it made me think of was, who would have thought in 1977 when George Lucas needed some weird bad guys to like, for Obi-Wan Kenobi to scare away and said, hey, wrap some bandages around these dudes' face. Let's call it a day. That we would end up where we ended up here, with us being like, I love the Tusken Raiders culture. Like that's amazing to me. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Got some nice comments here from people who are watching us. Boba finally has a family again, right? Because I mean, essentially he's orphaned at Jango's death, so we don't know how much. We don't know much about what happens with Boba and how he ends up where he ends up. Somebody mentioned a vision quest. Absolutely. Steve Owen said, "Should we like your teeth as well?" There you go, Mike.
I'm just saying, I love Temuera Morrison. I'm not dogging him. Those are some very pearly whites. That's all I'm saying.
Very true. Strawberry shortcake and peyote. Me too. I hate Playa Dust. It's rough, coarse, and it gets everywhere. There you go. That's a nice Burning Man reference. And Saul's in here. Saul, of all people, said the hallucination sequence, in my opinion, reveals to Boba his greatest flaw. I can't do Saul's voice. His inability to relinquish the anger over his father's death. If he can't relinquish that anger, he will end up just like his father. So very much what Michael kind of said here is, followed up, said, I think Michael is spot on. So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because what we know of Clone Wars, I mean, if you watch Clone Wars, the animated series, and you see young Boba, like, Boba's entire personality is, I hate the Jedi, they killed my dad. And so it'll be interesting to see if this is all we're going to touch on this vision quest, or if we're going to deal with that a little bit more at any point. The fact that, has he really let that go, or is this something that he's going to have to deal with at some point in the future?
Yeah.
Well, we sort of do see him dealing with it in the future at some point, because when we're in The Mandalorian, his whole quest is to help protect the child.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really beautiful way to sort of bring it back around, to show that he has learned and changed and grown. I like that we're backing up and sort of reestablishing that again, but it's just kind of interesting to see that we've kind of already seen it.
Yeah. I like Flick and Real says, talk about Star Wars visions. Hell.
Nice.
Jamie and Cersei Hutt, they're my favorites. Yikes. Oh, Shannon. Nice Shannon
Oh.
reference.
I am never not going. By the way, stealing it, taking it. That is now Jamie and Cersei the Hutt. That is
Yikes.
brilliant.
Yikes. I do want to bring up one thing when we see Boba walk out. I've seen some of these pictures kind of show saying that there's a comparison here, but I would like to push back on this comparison to Lawrence of Arabia in terms of the Peter O'Toole character. I think it's still in the same universe, but I will offer you the Anthony Quinn character. That's what he looks more like. And that Anthony Quinn's character is more of the indigenous connection. He's the one who comes out just as powerfully, leads his people in the film. So to me, I think that's the more stronger connection than the connection to the white savior of Peter O'Toole in that movie. So in fact, the garb is so similar in the black and the weapons being, and the belt being like wrapped around him. Very, very similar to what we see Anthony Quinn wearing Lawrence of Arabia. So just throwing it out there for you guys to consume, say yes or no. We do have some Streamlabs that have rolled through. I want to run through before we wrap up the show here and get our final thoughts. Jackal Jesse Swift is up in here saying, love finally catching the buddies live. It's always a pleasure to see Ms. Kelly flexing her bountiful wealth of lore knowledge. There is a reason we paid her 50,000 Imperial credits to be on our show in a couple of weeks. Oh, nice. Jesse goes to compliment you and then plugs his own show. Classy.
Supposed to stay on the down low with payment.
A little payment, but respect. All right. Lily B. Busy says, Temuera Morrison requested the gaffy stick be added to his character for the episode of The Mandalorian that Robert Rodriguez directed. Oh, in season 2. Rodriguez saw him do the haka and asked if that could be incorporated into Boba's fighting style. Interesting. Yeah, Haka is awesome. The Haka is so great. Alan Smithy donated. He says, hey, Geek Buds, I'm enjoying the show, but I want a new version of the Sarlacc pit scene with Boba fighting off Digestor tentacles while a half-digested Weequay grabs onto Boba screaming, help me, looking like that dude from RoboCop after the toxic waste. Jesus Christ, Smithy.
That toxic waste dude in RoboCop, when he gets hit by the car, that like scarred me for life when I saw it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Scarred me for life.
And then he loses his arm to a helicopter blade in ER. This guy had no luck in any of the shows or films he was in, that actor.
The most recent, the movies that made us on Netflix talks about RoboCop. And they talk about that sequence about the guy that got hit with the waist. Again, one of the grossest things
Absolutely.
ever.
Help me. All right. Fantastic. Last one. It says, I imagine we'll see more Tuskens, but in real time instead of flashbacks, possibly helping Boba battle the Hutts or the Pikes. I see both his flashbacks and present views meeting at the end with a guest star revealed. Yeah, that kind of occurred to me by the time I was done with this episode. Like, this is laying the groundwork for the Tuskens to come back down the road and helping Boba. There's no reason you lay the groundwork with them being a part of his life and part of his essential second rebirth. I know I talked about a rebirth in the first episode with him climbing out of the Sarlacc pit with all that gook over him, but this is with water in the vision. This is the real rebirth of Boba.
I'll tell you what, again, this is one of those things where, just like with that montage where they were training them on the speeder bikes, where you know what's going to happen, but if they do it right, it's satisfying.
Yeah.
I think that everybody, including all of us, if we're being honest, like Star Wars fans, I think we all underestimate Tuskens. We know that they live on Tatooine. We don't really think about them. They're a thing that lives there like the Jawas. We've never really given them one thought or the other. And if you have this series culminate in all the crime syndicates and all the crime families being like, well, we've got this guy, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, and then the Tuskens show up and they're like, nope, fuck you. Yeah. That will be so satisfying that I will lose my shit. Absolutely will lose my shit if that happens. And I hope I hope that Shannon is wrong and it's not tragic.
I hope you are right, because I think that is a more satisfying end. But I think when you have a character set out on a quest, there's a reason for that quest. And my fear is he does finally get his family and it is taken away from him.
Again? Oh.
I mean, I hope Vogel's right.
Yeah.
That is a much more satisfying end.
If it makes you feel any better, if history is any indication, I usually am. So.
Oh, there it is.
You're gonna say that with John right next to you after
Andrew Garfield, anybody? Andrew Garfield. Travis Little says, Vogel, don't spoil the series for God's sakes. There you go.
Hey, I'm saying that's the good part about it. When it does it right, it's satisfying either way. And I have no inside knowledge, so we'll see.
God. Got to see more Cobb Vanth in future episodes, says Geeks and Goddesses. Yeah, I think that's coming, right? We're heading there. You don't cast Timothy Oliphant for one episode of The Mandalorian. He's got to be coming back at some form. We shall see. Let's see. We got Dom's opinion. Thank you, Dom. Says a lizard up the nose is like getting a COVID test at your local Carbon Health. Get your test soon.
I've never tripped that hard from a COVID test, but here's hoping.
Sneaky little bugger.
Yeah, just like Dom, sneaky little bugger. Thank you, Dom, for that plug. Dom, one of the people who works at Carbon Health. So thank you, Dom, very much for sending that message in. And maybe we should change it to Carbonite Health. Just a suggestion for when we do Star Wars. All right. Any final words here? Michael, you had some things to say, but let's go to Laura first. Laura, any final words on this episode as we wrap up this spoiler review?
I cannot wait until we get the Disney Gallery series episodes of this show. Yeah. And especially like if they can just focus on this episode in particular, I would be totally fine with that. I would just love to get more information about all of it and how all of this came together, because I'm sort of curious, like, did this all sort of come together the same way The Mandalorian did, where you're going to have a sort of core group of directors and you're going to continue to bring them back? I'm not even sure if this is like, if the intention is to hopefully get a second season of the show, or if this is like a mini series that they're hoping to wrap up. I imagine it's being left open-ended, but the way that this episode at least was being received, I would like to think that we'll end up getting more. What led up to like the dancing around the fire and the training sequences is a couple of different sequences of Boba training with the warrior, not just them like sort of battling it out every once in a while, but we see them also like going through these poses every now and then in this episode too. And I just thought that was a really fun way to sort of lead up to what we got at the end. Temuera Morrison's performance so far has been very like understated, sort of quiet, reserved, and then there's like warrior mode, and there's not a lot in between, and I'm totally here for that. But it kind of makes me just want to have more Temuera Morrison in Star Wars in live action, and I kind of really want, like, I would love to get him as Rex if we can. That would just be really cool. And yeah, that's where I'll leave it for now. I said it at the beginning, but the celebration of Indigenous culture that we sort of got out of this episode was so exciting and joyous to see, and I just hope that there's more of that.
Absolutely. Shannon, any final thoughts on this episode, and looking forward to the next few episodes?
Yeah, I mean, Laura jumped in and took some thoughts right out of my head. I was immediately thinking at the end of this episode, I'm like, I can't wait to see the behind the scenes on this. One, to figure out if the directing style was similar to The Mandalorian, that they had their stable, but also just to hear the influences. I mean, we've already heard that Temuera Morrison did have a substantial amount of influence on where the character is going to go and aspects of the character. But just to hear specifics and to hear it from him, I think will be really, really interesting. And I can't wait to see Boba Fett have like the meeting of the 5 families, essentially. Like, I can't wait to see him sit down with other heads of organized crime and watch all these eccentric personalities sort of try to resolve their differences.
Yeah. Didn't see any Hutts in that meeting either, so we shall see. Michael, any other final words to add to what you said earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really jazzed to see where this goes. I mean, I think they're doing such a good job of they're doing such a nice job of giving us all the references, tying in the comic books, tying in the animated series, tying in the original trilogy, but also really paving new ways. And whether that's taking existing characters or alien races and showing us new shades of them that we haven't seen or considered before, or adding new elements. I mean, I think that this is the building up of the Star Wars universe that I think a lot of us were craving, that we're finally getting. And I think that's really great. And I agree with Laura. There was one point, I forget where it was. I think it was right before they like attacked the train, where I was looking at Temuera Morrison with all of the Tusken Raiders. And I was like, man, after the prequel trilogy, he probably was like, well, that was cool, I guess. I played Jango Fett. I got to be some clones. I guess that was it. And the potential that Temuera Morrison has now to just own live action Star Wars. Like, do I want to see more Boba Fett? 100%. Do I want to see him as Rex and or other clones that we don't know about that are still around? Absolutely. Like, he gets to play all of these people. And I have to imagine, between what we know of the Bad Batch, what we know of Clone Wars, knowing that Rex fought in the Battle of Endor, knowing that Boba is still around and doing his stuff now, that there have to be plans to see him continue as Boba Fett beyond this season, beyond these 7 episodes, but also to potentially continue as other characters. And I just can't wait to see what they're doing. I'm just so excited to be a Star Wars fan at this point in our lives right now.
Yeah, I think Michael's last line is the way I feel. I'm excited for all the different things that we're getting now. And when a Star Wars story, what was promised kind of fell apart and didn't happen, this has been kind of picking up that baton and carrying it forward. And it's been fun to see with The Mandalorian, with this. And now I'm even more excited for Kenobi, even more excited for Andor, even more excited for the TV series that are going to come, the second seasons, third seasons, whatever, first seasons. I'm just excited that universe is getting it right, giving us some new and interesting Star Wars. And yeah, pissing off some fans, but so fucking what? That's kind of the game. You got to make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs. And I like that they're willing to crack a few eggs and try something new, regardless of people getting crazy about it on the internet. They're going to keep going forward with the vision that they have had and the vision they have in creating this Star Wars. And this, as Laura pointed out, this was so satisfying. My girlfriend's half Native American. Discussing this episode with her was so satisfying. Her mom being full Native American, just hearing the points of views from them about seeing something like this was really powerful. And of course, Tushka Productions, they're speaking about it as well, him being full Native American as well. So it's just really great to see the indigenous tribes. And this is all over the place, all over the world. So there are indigenous tribes and people who have indigenous tribes history that they can see an episode like this and connect it back to their own country's history and have conversations about it. So it's just fascinating stuff that Star Wars is doing. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. I just want to make sure I don't miss any more Streamlabs or Super Chats. No, we're good to go. Please remember to hit a like on this video. We still haven't crossed 300 likes, even though we've got well over 450 of you all watching us right now. Do that while we're wrapping things up here. Please hit that like button so you give us some love. And if you're watching it later, like a lot of you do, leave a comment down below. Likes and comments are so important. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MK2. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey?
Look, whether you're a Tusken, a Twi'lek, or a Trandoshan, we are happy that you are here with us. And we want to continue doing this with our good buddies at Carbon Health. And here's how you can help us do it. Like Johnny said, smash that like button below. It's going to take you 2 seconds. I know you don't want to do it. You're like, I'm not going to do it. I'm watching this. I'm tired. Just go smash the like button. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your comments below. Your comments in the chat have been amazing. Bring them over into the YouTube channel. Leave your comments there. Let us know what you thought. Let us know where you think it's going. Let us know how you feel about Shannon being tardy. Like any thoughts you have, just put them right there in the chat. And if you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere where podcasts are available, leave some stars, leave some comments. It helps us go up in the rankings so more people can find us. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, and tell all of your friends to come hang out with the Geek Buddies.
Absolutely. Well said, Michael. And big thanks again from all three of us to Laura Kelly for joining us for yet another review. Thank you so much, Laura. We've got you. Hopefully you'll stick around for all the rest of the episodes. We'd love to have you keep coming back with us because we enjoy your sterling analysis. Please tell people where they can find you and everything you're doing in the world of Star Wars and outside the world of Star Wars.
Sure, come find me on Twitter at @shutup_Laura. That's where I spent most of this week tweeting about the High Republic. Rogan and I host the Jedi Way right here on his channel, and the podcast I host with my friend Alice is called Force Toast, a Star Wars Happy Hour, and you can find that on all major podcast platforms.
There you go. And one more time, I want to reiterate, ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe to the channel. Trying to get to 25,000 subscribers now as soon as possible. I know these videos do well. We're at 20,200. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so, because there's a wealth of Geek Buddies content coming and a wealth of Geek Buddies of content that you can go back and watch and enjoy as well. That's here exclusively on the channel. So please do that. And don't forget our podcast stream as well. All right, we're out of here. Thank you so much for watching us and taking your Friday night to hang out with us. Y'all take care of yourselves. Be well. Have a fun weekend. And then come back and join us next week for another live episode, another live spoiler review episode for episode 3 of the Book of Boba Fett. But I forgot to say, and thank you very much to Carbon Health. Carbon Health, please, they're a leading national healthcare provider. Go to carbonhealth.com. You get some COVID testing. If you're going overseas, they're helping you test with that. You got anything going on with you physically that you want to get checked out, there's virtual care from them as well. So go to carbonhealth.com, see if there's a clinic near you or if there's any virtual care that they can offer you. They're a leading national healthcare provider that believes healthcare should be accessible to everyone. So give them some love for powering and sponsoring our show and the Outlaw Nation here. And we'll see you next time for another brand new review episode here from the
Geek
Buddies!